Hi Anti-Society, welcome back to the Antisocial Planet. Today we are finally getting into Dreamcatcher's VirtuouS album, and I'm super excited for this, not just because it's a whole album of Dreamcatcher music, but also because I really don't know what I'm going to be getting into. I feel like that happens with every Dreamcatcher album where, like, yes, I can give some broad strokes of what I think is going to be on this album, but I don't think I ever am truly prepared for what I'm about to walk into. And I think especially with this one, since they are starting a new era of their music, and the last album with Villains was very much them intentionally going against expectations or playing around with their sound a lot more. There were some more trendy things being done in that album because they were specifically leaning into some of the industry expectations and playing characters more than they have in some of their previous music. And then listening to Justice felt way more in line with what I think Dreamcatcher genuinely wants to be. But that being said, I still don't know what that's going to get me on this album. What parts of Dreamcatcher are we going to be getting on this album? How have they progressed? Because they continue to keep doing that with every album I end up checking out. I just end up loving their music more and more, so I'm not entirely sure what we're getting into, but Justice made me cry, so you know, going in with that emotional turmoil already. And with this one, not only do we have a bunch of new songs, but the intro is almost 4 minutes, and I am here for that, so let's just jump into the album. Okay, we've got a proper song for the intro, which I'm super excited for. I'm assuming it's still instrumental because I didn't see any lyric videos about it, so still exciting. I always love the intros and outros. So let's see what they got for us. Very staccato piano. There's almost something sentimental about it, but also like slightly off kilter. Ooh, the guitar. I love the way they're layering in elements. Like we have the choir vocals too. And now like the synth. Do not give me a fret slide on that bass. All right, I'm not entirely sure what I was expecting. I always go into the intros as open-minded as possible because I feel like they set up the atmosphere of the album. And that was like, again, oddly sentimental, but with this off-kilter feeling. I think that kind of fits into some of the stuff that we had in Justice, of this feeling of progressing through, getting past barriers they talk about, but also having to deal with any kind of hardships or things deliberately being put in your way to stop you from succeeding and fighting to succeed anyway. So having a little bit of sentimentality or melancholy mixed into the sound, I feel really fits with that. I'm interested in the fact that it's very staccato right now and how we're going to switch up. I love how they slowly incorporated all of these elements. I feel like it has a great progression to it and almost feels slowly building up the identity of the album, especially since it's called seven members of the group. The way that the group was built up together and the way that they have progressed through their career by slowly adding in elements and building up and getting to the point where they're at, right? Because they didn't just like come out the gate and were super successful. They had everything with their previous group and then re-debuting as Dreamcatcher and then slowly pushing through to get to the point that they're at. So having these kind of elements slowly building up on top of each other, I feel like builds up that narrative a little bit. We've got a whole song to get through, though. Whew. Ooh. Love the drums coming in and that like synth kind of winding up. Okay, having that like fret slide into the music progressing is great. Those synths are trippy in the back. Okay. Oh, interesting. I love the way that they added in all these elements. It really pulls back, even though there's still some staccato elements in the way that the production is arranged, because there's so many elements layered up now. It feels less like there is this kind of disconnect to it, which I feel like also builds into the narrative that I was talking before about them kind of building up elements together. There was a rocky start to this group, right? And especially with them re-debuting, there was a time when they were trying to be a group that didn't quite mesh with who they were. So it was like trying to force something that wasn't actually who they were. And I feel like that is part of the narrative that they're building up with the previous album going into this one, of what are the expectations, especially within K-pop and music in general, and like women in music specifically, and how does that contrast who they actually are and the things that they actually want to be expressing in their art and their music. And I feel like that's been the whole story of Dreamcatcher, of them trying to fit into a specific image and sound and forcing themselves into a box and it not working for them, and that both being like financially, numbers wise, but also in terms of their own fulfillment in what they were creating, and going into Dreamcatcher, which far better aligns with who they are as people and the kinds of things that they want to create, but was still a struggle for them to get to where they are because they were no longer in that box. People didn't really know what to do with them, or they went against what people were looking for, especially in South Korea. So they were constantly fighting like this uphill battle. And so there is this kind of like disconnected sound at the beginning of this track, then going into it all starting to mesh together as you put in all of these elements. And there's lots of different things happening, right? There's the synths that are happening, some of them a little bit more like retro, some of them more like trippy and dreamy, and then you have like the guitars and the piano, which are more like, you've got like some analog sounds in parts of it, and guitars in general are very closely associated with like rock music, which is the core sound of Dreamcatcher, is that rock inspiration. So you have all these different elements that are building up on each other and showing all these different facets of the kind of music that they want to create, all kind of meshing together into this very like sentimental, slightly off-kilter, slightly like hopeful, optimistic sound. And I really like it. I really like that we have like this fret slides too into these like progressions in the song, these step ups in the sound as we go along the song. And then it all kind of pulls back. Again, very staccato. Ooh. Oh, I love a fret slide. This is far more in that like rock pocket. Ooh, the guitars. More elevated sound too, like it's brighter, it's up farther. Don't do this to me. Don't give me a whole bass focal point. Ooh, back into the ooh, piano, but we have two now. Interesting. Are we just gonna let it ring out at the end? I can't believe there's a whole 4 minutes. Legitimately interesting. I love that we had the pianos, the two over top of each other, and the one on top had this almost fairy tale feeling to it, which I know that there is some fairy tale imagery that is mixed in with Dreamcatcher sound and the imagery that they put in music videos and stuff. Of course, a little bit more on the Grimm's brothers fairy tale side than the kind of PG versions of them. It's less of a children's story and more of digging into some of those more macabre side to fairy tales and stuff. stuff, whilst also still having that kind of like whimsy and playfulness that a lot of them have. Love having any kind of bass in general. Love it. I cannot believe they gave me a whole section that's just like, hang on, let's just focus on the bass for a second, because dang it, the production team in this group. Look, we always say that they're my actual bias. Where people are like, who's your bias in Dreamcatcher? I'm like, obviously the production team, because they always get me. And I loved getting that. And all of the elements switching in and out of each other, getting lots of different points where we focused on those different elements of it, whether it was the bass or the piano or the guitars or the more synthy parts, getting to isolate those moments and show off what was going on in the production there. Love that we had the section in the middle that was like far more in that rock genre before switching into some of the other parts of it. Cannot believe that was almost 4 minutes, honestly, because I feel like there was so much going on. And this is why we love the intros and outros, right? I feel like I can't be the only one I don't skip them when I'm listening to the album, right? Like when I listen to the whole album, because I do listen to Dreamcatcher as whole albums instead of one singular song, I don't skip over the intros and I don't skip over the outros. We're listening to the whole thing because they're so good. And I love that they gave us a full track, just the intro to this album, which I think not only is just amazing for us as fans, I think that it shows that they understand their fans, or they at least listen to them, because I know I'm not the only person who's like, when can we get a full song as the intro for an album? And I think it also shows that kind of what I was saying earlier on about how the previous album felt very much like they were leading into kind of like caricatures or specific narratives of like what their expectations of the group were, or like what people want out of the group, and making a parody of that, right? And then this one I feel like is going to be fitting more into what they genuinely want to express, and I think that this really fits into that, because not only is this part of Dreamcatcher's discography and they're always like making sure that people know about the production team, fans are always filling me in on production things, which I think is great. Just the fact that we can talk about the production team and it's like we know who they are, they're part of the group, part of the sound. They talk about like the choreographers and the backup dancers. We can bring in all those elements because they're such an important part of Dreamcatcher as a group and the experience of being a fan of Dreamcatcher, that they're also important to talk about. So getting the time to be like, hey, here's the production team, let's just let them have their moment to shine, I think shows a genuine side to them. But also I think it just shows of, hey, if you don't want to listen, if you can't get through the first 4 minutes of this album, it's not for you. Right? Just putting a monster of a track in a world of 2.5-minute long songs. They're like double that. It's completely instrumental and is the beginning of the album. I think it's such a power move of just like, let's just filter out people who cannot be bothered, because this album's not for them anyway. So I think that it just like, it fits into such a wonderful like narrative of what Dreamcatcher is and like how much they've progressed and the relationship that they have with their fans, that this track even exists, right? But we have to get into the next songs. This is where I start to get a little bit worried, because we're getting into the actual tracks and I feel like there's always one in the middle of the album that just takes me out. It ends up being my favorite track on the album, and then they usually rope me in with feelings and sentimentality near the end, or at least it's a dreamy bop, right? I never really know. I'm nervous about Two Rings because I've heard stuff about the performance side of it, but I don't know. There's an exclamation point that just makes me be like, ugh. Okay. That's a dark sound. Ooh. No, I'm not ready. Not to interrupt right before the drop, but I was like, no, I need a break. Okay, one super dark sound in terms of just like the distortion of this guitar, possibly a bass. It's like very muted with the distortion. Then going into the vocal melodies here, I love that we started with Gahyun, her vocals. She sounded fantastic. I love the blooming and the fire imagery, so flowers and fire, the contrast of those two things, not necessarily supposed to mesh, but I love the imagery. They're like persevering in these parts of hostility with the cracks and rocks. Not exactly the best environment for something to be growing, and then burning in contrast to that. I love the brave knight imagery too. I talked about there being some fairy tale sounding production in the intro and then bringing in the brave knight in this this one. We had Dami had the sword and the justice MV as well. I also had some discussions with patrons about the artwork in the Justice music video and how it's linked up with mythology and stuff like that, which is also something definitely a rabbit hole that I could fall down, but I'm like, I don't know how much I should let that obsession sink in. I also like the I may be small, but I'm not unpracticed. Love that. The idea of they may not be like the most popular group, they may not have the most pull in the industry, but just because they don't have that doesn't mean that they're incapable of holding their own, standing up for themselves. Doesn't mean they don't have the experience, right? Like, they've been around for a while, not just as Dreamcatcher, but also previous iterations of the group. They've been training for a long time. They've wanted this for a long time. Even Handong might not have been in the original lineup, but she's been training as a performer and a vocalist for a long time. She's wanted this for a long time. I had some people tell me that there's even parts where she sings more operatic things, because I've talked about how much Phantom of the Opera inspired me in terms of my performance and singing journey, and people are saying, oh, she sang some of the songs from that. It's not just that Handong has the experience as Dreamcatcher, but she also has the experience just in terms of a love of performance and theater and music and singing. So they've all been doing this for a while. So just because they might not be the most popular group doesn't mean that they don't know what they're doing, right? And I feel like people shrug that off. I love smaller groups. I love smaller groups in K-pop, in Western music, in any kind of music industry. I always try to find some of those smaller musicians and groups because I think that they're like these hidden gems, and they're also fantastic. They might just not have the same backing or they haven't reached the same audience yet, but that doesn't mean that they're not talented, that they don't have a bunch of experience, that they don't have something important to say. So I love just that line. We have some more fire imagery coming into this, and the idea of, again, sparking something and having that spread and grow over time. We've had that imagery in their music before, and definitely goes into what I was saying about like how they've been doing this for a long time. They've taken a slower journey than a lot of other musicians and groups. They didn't really hit a point where they just suddenly were viral in some way. They've progressed throughout the years of trekking forward and getting to this point. And honestly, with this comeback, I've seen a lot more people talking about Dreamcatcher and making videos about them and stuff like that. It just makes me so excited when I just see all of these people starting to get into Dreamcatcher and retroactively discover their music. I know I'm one of those people too, because I didn't jump on the bandwagon right away either. I heard Deja Vu and then I just didn't come back to them for a while because I wasn't ready for the commitment. I love getting to see more people discovering them and appreciating them and knowing that this kind of music exists in K-pop, because it does. And I'm not ready for this chorus because I feel like it's gonna come for me. Love this vocal melody. Haunting, but in a beautiful way. Ooh. Nah. Okay, first off, Dami, wait your turn. Second, Sua sounded amazing. I feel like her vocals have just elevated in some way. I don't know what she was doing. I heard some people talk about how she was having some health issues specifically with her voice, and there was a little bit of iffiness about whether or not she was going to recover to the point of being able to perform in the way that she used to, and she seems to be doing okay. She seems to be doing excellent. She's really leveled up in her vocals, and I'm so proud every time to hear just like how much her voice has progressed. I love the layered vocals. This live is probably so much fun because we'd be like yelling and singing along to that. I love that we have the warrior imagery again, because we had that in Justice as well, continuing that imagery. We had the knight before. I like the Your Life is a Universe. We've had lots of star imagery with their music as well. So they've talked about their fans being these points of light, these stars. And I love the idea of your life being a universe means that there's like all these points of light, there's all this potential, universe is constantly expanding, and just like cosmic imagery there and carrying that through. They sound fantastic. Love the kind of rush of production and drums and guitars coming in for the chorus as well. Okay, no, just the bite and shake as hard as you can, almost like the dog imagery of that, right? I'm thinking of almost like a guard dog, and having that imagery in contrast to some of the stuff the warriors and knights before, a little bit more on the savage side, which I feel like having Dami with like her vocal tone delivering that is really nice, especially with the more like rap cadence, the contrast there. But also, we don't have time. Also love that. I feel like there's like this feeling of whatever it is that you have to say, whatever thing you're going to attack us with or throw our way, we don't have time to deal with this. We're just going to keep going because we don't have time to deal with you making noise and yapping and all of that. We have things to do. I love the image of that. Ooh. I was gonna say Gio's voice sounds great, but the production. The drums on this. Ooh. Okay, one, the drummer on this, excellent. Also love that they have these moments where they have these long drawn out vocals. They'll do these vocal runs, like the roar here, and then in the next, like end of the next line, they go into their lower range. So like the contrast of that like higher part of their almost belting tone, elongating those vowel sounds, those syllables, and then contrasting that with going into the lower part of their range, just like showing these two sides, one of the vocals. It's interesting, like dynamically within the vocal melody, but I think it also shows this like up and down of their journey anyway, like the progression that they've gone through. Lots of imagery throughout this album so far has been like this kind of up and down part of their journey and them continuing to fight through anyway, taking whatever gets thrown their way and being like, we've been doing this long enough that, you know, just because we might not be quite at the top of the game in terms of every other group that you can compare us to, doesn't mean we're unpracticed, doesn't mean we haven't done this before, doesn't mean we've had to fight to get to where we are now anyway. You think that you have anything new or creative to throw at us? No, we've done all of this. Them like having this vocal melody that kind of has this like back and forth, up and down, almost like seesaw effect to it is really nice. I also like the isolation of Run. I think that also in terms of them, it could be like them saying we're going to progress forward anyway, we're going to keep moving forward anyway, but there's also a little bit of a threat to it. We are warriors and fighting and roar and this fighter imagery to it, and having the isolated Run I feel like has a little bit of a threat underlying it, which I always like when Dreamcatcher gets that little bit of a threat leak in it, because it just there's something like about it, right? They're not going to take it lying down. Yeah, they're like go on run, like oof. Woo! Xian. Those synths are wild. Ooh, I was hoping that they would end on that. Okay, one, Xian. Every time, knocking it out of the park. Love her vocals so much, her vocal tone. Yuhyun had some great parts of just like, vibrato. I love her vibrato so much. And every time she just puts a little bit of it at the end of the phrase, I'm just like, it's so good. They all sound so good in this. And I also really love the pullback. I love that they talked about being heroes at one time as well. Again, villains, previous album, heroes in this one. We've had the knights, we've had warriors, all this kind of classic imagery of kind of standing up against injustice. We have Justice, the single for this album. Love all the synths and stuff like building into this, a bit of a darker sound. And I love the ending with Go On Run. This like the threat there and like the everything pulling back so you just hear the run like isolated. Yup. And the Stomp live is probably fantastic. That is probably such a wonderful energy to be in. There's so many other songs where I'm like, I want to hear this live. I want to hear them live anyway because I just want to be part of it. But also there's so many other songs where I'm like, the atmosphere of getting to experience the song live is probably so amazing. It's probably crazy to be like in the audience, let alone on the stage while it's happening. But love the threat of run, right? Because we have justice first, being like, we're going to fight for justice, for that kind of need for, I don't know, karma or equaling out the scales or balance or whatever. And then having this one end with the go on run. Take your chance now, because we've been doing this for a while. We've done all this before. Nothing you can say is something that we haven't dealt with before. We have the experience. We don't have the time anymore because we've already tried to play nice. And now we're here. We're going to keep moving forward. We're going to keep fighting for what we want. Face it, swallow that destiny, and run. Just, ooh, I love it. I love like the feeling of that, like the empowerment of that so much. And the song in general, like the production was going wild. The drummer, the guitars in it, they're like grungier, have a lot more of that distortion on them. They have a bit of a darker tone in general. Love that. Ooh, okay, this is what we're doing then. This is what this album's gonna be like. Okay, sure. This is the one I'm scared of. This is the one I'm scared of. It's also the shortest one so far. Is the longest song on this album the intro? Because that would be hilarious and I would love that so much. But also, this is the one I'm scared of the most, because I've heard things. I've heard people say it's their favorite song on the album. This and Justice seem to be the main favorites. Specifically, I've heard about the performances, which always makes me nervous because we have, look, I always have flashbacks to Damien. Okay, I will forever, that performance just lives in my brain all the time. I'll just be going about my life and then I'll remember that performance. So I'm just afraid. I know that this is just the lyrics, just the song, but usually the songs that they choose to do specific kinds of choreo and showcases and stuff for usually come in swinging. So I'm just scared. Am I procrastinating a little bit? Maybe. Oh boy. Oh, I was right. I should definitely be scared of this. No, everybody already on timeout. No, okay, wait, it's okay. It's the guitars, it's the clap, the drums. It's got a little bit of a funk groove to it. Can we talk about Handong's vocals there, ma'am? Gosh, she's looking at me like that in these pictures too. I remember these pictures dropping, and I was freaking out. Like, why are we in an office? What's going on? Anyway, I was freaking out about them over my Discord where we like chat about stuff like that. But her vocals though, Handong on this with that cry that she's putting in there. No, ma'am. No, ma'am. Are we going back to the beginning? Yes, we are. Oh, this is probably fun live type. The claps. Xian. She put a vocal slide in it. No, okay, anyone who knows me knows that I love a vocal slide. Vision took me out, okay? The vocals on this, from all of them, might take me out. I was like, performance. You're telling me that they're singing like this whilst performing? I can imagine the kind of performance we were getting in terms of choreography. Is it Suwa choreo? Because I just need to know. I need that warning ahead of time. I think it is. I think that someone told me. I'm just so nervous now. Okay, no, okay. Focus. We must stay focused. No, this funky beat to it, far more in almost a, I don't know, like a older rock sound. We had a bit of a grungy feeling in Stomp, and then this one having more of a more like classic rock vibe to it with that funk kind of built into it. Love the driving imagery too, partly just because I feel like it really fits with kind of that rock feeling of music, like the imagery of that, but also it makes me think of in OTD where they have the line of come and ride, right? We have the imagery and they have the choreo that's that drive, I think more like a motorcycle in terms of the imagery that they're doing, but directly contrasting that image with that one, because there was like specific driving imagery and that was a little bit more on on the superficial side, like intentionally being like, hey, here are these things that are like very shallow and come up in music a lot. Like, there's tons of music where people are talking about their cars or the wealth of that or whatever vehicles that they're driving around and stuff like that as a way of flexing, and them kind of playing into that, contrasted here of it being more of like metaphorical. And also this idea drive, we could talk about like physical driving in terms of a car or vehicle, and then we could also talk about drive in terms of like having drive for something, which means that you're like continually working, progressing towards it. So having those interlocking imagery there, and also enjoying the ride as well, being like, hey, I'm gonna take you along with me, you're a passenger whether you like it or not, so you might as well enjoy it. I'm gonna take you on a whole winding route down this path of destiny, you might as well enjoy it, right? But the vocals, I'm shaking a little bit. I am literally shook. I'm not ready. I can't even be mad because y'all did warn me about this one. I was thoroughly warned. What's happening? Okay, I'm just gonna leave this line here and be like, that is my comment on that. The vocals, the instrumentation, that like vocal that's like very distorted, like the sample of the vocal in the back that has all these filters on it. The vocal slides, also the enjoy it more like unstable we had before about them saying like they love the thrill of risk was the line, I think. So like the idea of liking the danger of it, right? Like, again, I think that fits very well with this driving imagery, but I think also fits really well with the contrast in this whole album, I think, which is contrasting with Villains, which was more about the superficial side of being in the music industry, being popular, having people, everyone has an opinion on what you're doing, whether it is fans, random people just passing by, the industry, brands that you're trying to work with. Everyone has some kind of opinion about what your group should sound like, what they should look like, what they should do, how they should behave, how they should speak. There's so many things to being in the limelight that everyone has some kind of opinion on. And then contrasting it with this one where it feels more in line with who they are. Far more rock heavy though. I feel like there's a lot more heavy rock inspiration in this album than I've heard from them so far. We've gotten hints of it where there'll be like specific songs that lean more into the heavy side, but I feel like this overall, the album is leaning way more into that, which I love. I'm a huge rock fan, so I've already gotten on the ride. I got on a long time ago now that I'm just like, yes, let's do this. But contrasting a lot with the kind of stuff that they talked about in Villains, and definitely they had darker tones in Villains. There was definitely this darker, sinister feeling to a lot of the songs, but not in the same way that this one has. This one has more of that, again, rock, grunge, funk. There's even some punk inspirations in some of it too, which I feel like all kind of leans into this alternative style, which is literally what they're trying to talk about, is like being an alternative to the expectations and leaning into the sincerity of that. And I think the fact that this song is about liking the danger of that, understanding that they're taking a risk, right? I think that Dreamcatcher understands better than anyone at this point that the kind of music that they want to create is not the popular sound, is not the widely accepted sound, is not what in general people are looking for in K-pop, let alone in girl groups, right? Them saying, yeah, we understand the risks, we get it, we know that we're doing something that is outside of that pocket. And I think for a really long time they were trying to, there was like this polish to it, or they were trying really hard to prove that they could do a specific kind of sound. And don't get me wrong, I love Dreamcatcher's music. I go back and I listen to their albums, like I said before, like whole albums. I'll just sit and I'll just go through. We'll start at the beginning and we'll just work our way through all the albums. I'll just play them throughout the day, right? So I love their music up until I have to skip albums because I haven't listened to them all yet. But it does feel as if they were very much trying to fit into a pocket of sound, and you can hear the progression of them testing out other things and trying new things. And again, there's a gap in my timeline of their music so far because I haven't listened to all of their stuff yet, but it was a slower progression like I was talking before. And then in the last album, this one, it feels way more like they're just like, screw it, let's just do it. There were a lot lot of new, weird, off-kilter sounds in Villains, and a lot of that can be played off to them leaning into the character they were trying to talk about in that one. And there's definitely a lot of discussion within the fandom about those songs and how people felt about them. And this feels like that just leading in, being like, yeah, let's just do it. Let's just try things. Let's just do what we want as who we are, as who, what we genuinely want to express, because we already have done the dangerous thing. We re-debuted as a rock group. We've done lots of things that do not fit with what people's expectations are. We understand the expectations and we don't want to do it. That's not who we want to be. And they've matured so much as a group and as artists, and vocally production is popping off on this too. I've heard really good things about the performances and the choreography as well. So, you know, there's tons of things in this album of just them showing what great artists they are. And they're just, I feel like they're just leaning into the chaos of it. And I love it. I would much rather, I said this with Villains too, because there was discussion about people kind of feeling iffy or having a very wide range of opinions on it. I was like, I would much rather have a group try new things and surprise me and show me that they're willing to experiment and do lots of other stuff than stick to one thing and just copy paste, right? I would much rather have a group just genuinely be like, I don't know, let's try something and do something weird and see what happens. And whether or not it is my specific cup of tea or not, irrelevant. I want to see them experiment. I want to see them be artists and embrace lots of different things. And I love Villains. I'd go back and listen to it all the time. They just try lots of new things in it. And I feel like this is just them leaning into it. And there's new stuff on this album too, of them just like, trying different things, even though it feels more in line with Dreamcatcher and the sound that they want to create. They're doing lots of new stuff. The vocals on this are so good. Am I procrastinating a little bit? Maybe. I'm gonna go back though. Have to. Those guitars at the back though. No, the way that they softened out their voices here. Like I was talking about the vocals and the way that they're putting in this grit and like aggression and like cries into it, like the tension that you can hear in their voices. And then they just pulled back, especially with the line of like, pretending to be sweet. And they pull back, they lighten up their vocals. There's a little more like breathiness in it. Like, nah, I wasn't ready. Y'all warned me and I wasn't ready.
Drive me crazy. 내 모든 걸 걸고 join this game. Yeah, yeah. 달려고지로 내가 원했던 것으로 당겨 full throttle in this moment unstoppable. Game changer. 이 판을 갖고 놀기로 too dangerous, but never mind, I can handle it.
Ooh, the vocal run like in the back layered. Okay, I was gonna talk about Tommy. I love the change this game she talked about. I probably won't be able to find it now. Game changer, and it's just, I'll toy with this game. That's what I was thinking of. Again, leading into that idea of them saying, oh, I like it more when it's unstable, like the thrill of risk. And them saying, hey, you say this game is dangerous? I'm gonna toy with it, right? I'm gonna play around. I'm gonna have fun because why not, right? And I think that's leaning into some of the stuff that they talked about so far. And I think just like where they're at as a group is that they're past that point of needing to worry about things not working out again, right? Because they re-debuted and that has a lot of risk in it. And they knew that, but they wanted to try it anyway. They wanted to do a rock sound because it felt more in line with who they were. Another risk, right? And I think for a long time they were really trying to prove themselves and find their footing and get their foot in the door and stay there, right? There was a lot of instability to the beginning of their career as Dreamcatcher, and now they've gotten to a point where they've proven that they have the longevity. Like, how much music have they put out? I know that I'm not the fastest in getting through their music or uploads and stuff, but there's so much for me to check out and to catch up on. And they've made a lot of stuff and they've been around for a long time. They have a bunch of experience now. They have a very devoted fan base that is going to be there and support them. So they don't have the same risk involved with just being able to maintain their career and continuing to be Dreamcatcher. I feel like they're feeling far more stable in that, which means that they're just like, all right, let's play then, right? I know that I've got footing. I know that I've got people to back me. So you want to play the game? Let's do it. right? Come into the ring, right? Like this idea of like, all right, let's do this. And I love that confidence. I love the idea of them like kind of treating this in a more playful way and finding almost like this macabre humor in it because they know that they can do it, right? Not just have they proven that they can last as long as they have and continue to create wonderful music and art and stuff. They have the experience now. They don't have the same newbie energy to them as they did earlier on. They know they have the fan base. They know that they have far more connections and stability in the industry, and they might as well have some fun with it, right? They already know that they're taking a risk. They already know that they're outside of the popular expected thing. So why not play with it? If people are going to get angry at them and hate on them for their sound anyway, might as well have some fun, right? Might as well do something fun with it. So I also love that too dangerous, never mind, I can handle it. That idea of not even worrying about the warning signs because you're just like, whatever, I got this. I've been doing this for a long time. That vocal slide. Tommy, ma'am. Sua. No. Okay, look, Nami is already part of my bias line. Always been a problem. Sua, I feel like is more comfortably in the record category, but I honestly don't know what to do at this point. I feel like every time there's a comeback, I have to go back to the drawing board of what even arbitrary lines at this point I want to put between bias line and record line, because I don't even know. Okay, but why did they have to growl at me back to back? I already had it when I checked out Sua's Titanium cover that she did, which is on the channel if you want to check it out. She growled in that too, and I was like, ma'am, where did that come from? What are we doing? And now they're both doing it. Back to back. I feel like I'm like trying to physically put distance between me and this song. Okay. Unacceptable behavior. Production. I don't even know if I have a legitimate thing to say at this point. I feel like I'm just... God, Gahyun here was her vocals were so good. I love that they're playing with lightening up their voices, then having more of that bright, forward, full closure sound. Then we have like the more gritty sounds that they're putting in. They're just like, playing with their vocals on this, which I feel like fits with the song in general. Drums. The ad-libs. Ooh, she had a little vibrato in her voice there. I'm gonna need some time to process that one. You're telling me there's a performance? You're telling me there's a whole performance to that song? No, I won't survive. I barely made it through this. Just a song. No, I can't. I don't even know if I'm gonna have coherent thoughts. Did I have any coherent thoughts throughout that? I don't even know. The vocals, the vocal slides, the production, the drums. Again, drums are so good on this album so far. Do love some drums, the bass. There's like some good like rhythm section stuff on this, which I'm obsessed with. I'm replaying the song in my head and trying to be like, what part do I even want to talk about? I don't know. Love the confidence, especially after the end of STØMP, which ended with that run, that little bit of the threat there. And then you get into this song that has more of that funk groovy sound to it, but still has this get out of my way. I like the danger. I like the risk. You pointing that out and being like, oh, you're like going against expectations. You're taking a risk. You're doing something dangerous. Stop doing that. All of these warning signs to them. And them just being like, I don't care. Doesn't bother me. Because I've done this before. Same thing I was saying with Stomp, of them having this feeling of, say whatever you want. I've already done it. People have already said this to me. I've already lived through it and survived and gotten to the other side of it. And oops, I was super successful along the way. Nothing you can say to me is something that I haven't heard before, I haven't dealt with before. You're just repeating yourself. And then this song has a similar vibe of, you can put up all these warnings you want. You can go into the side of people advising them, being like, hey, you should do this or you should do that. Or if you change this, then you get better numbers, or whatever the metric is that somebody wants to choose for their success. And them just being like, I don't care. Put up all the warning signs you want. Put up all of the danger. Don't go this way. Turn around. All those wordings that you want. I'm just going to keep going forward because this is what I want. This is who I am. And these are the things that I want to make and create and what I want to contribute to music and art. This is what I want. Either get in and enjoy the ride, or you're gonna get left behind. And it's just, oh, it's so good. I'm terrified of watching a performance of this. I will, but I'm terrified. Legitimately scared of what this is gonna be, because the song alone. I feel like I need more time to recover after that last one, so we're gonna see what they have for me. This seems to be the actually longest song on the album. Are we gonna be sentimental? The pictures have changed. I feel like maybe we are. I feel my prediction now, and I'm totally fine with being wrong, but I feel like this song is going to be directed at the fans, because I feel like a lot of this album has been them showing off a little bit, but more of this confident, higher energy, swagger feeling to the kind of music that's in it. And then this song, I feel like maybe is going to bring more to that genuine connection that they maintain with their fans, especially Fireflies. Again, points of light in the darkness. We've had stars associated with insomnia before, so maybe we'll see. Uh-oh. We have slow piano at the beginning. You gonna get me my feelings? Because I've already cried this album. Oh no. It sounds sentimental. Okay, fine. Justice sort of made me cry. I was right though. I was like, if I'm gonna get more sentimental. It feels very nostalgic though. It feels like it should belong in a movie from the 80s. And I'm here for it, don't get me wrong. Which I feel like they were digging into some of the older sound, rock sounds. I was talking about funk, groove, grunge, punk. Those are a little bit older in terms of mainstream sounds in rock music, with the grunge and punk. So I feel like having a little bit of a throwback sound to even like a more ballad song fits in with that. The vocals though, vocals. I just need them to come up with an album that does not become my entire personality after I hear it. Not that I want them to make not great music, but I would be okay with just a great album that I like, even love, but not one that instantly becomes an obsession. Is that too much to ask? Probably. Yohyun's voice on ballads. The like drop sound. I don't know if I'm gonna have any thoughts for this one either, because the harmonies, why is there so many colors here? Are they all singing together? Are y'all gonna come at me all at once? The harmonies there. They were so beautiful. The melody is beautiful too, but just having their two voices layered on top of each other. I love the story imagery as well, because we've had, again, fairy tale imagery throughout this, and then incorporating that again into the storybook. And they've talked before about, they have a whole song called Fairy Tale, the idea of living their dream and getting to have their dream fulfilled, and showing a lot of gratitude towards their fans because they feel like they're living in a fairy tale, they're living in a dream, because they've made it, and they've made it in a way that feels genuine to who they are, and that they have this huge outpouring of love and support and understanding and empathy for what they're trying to make, and incorporating that again to the storybook imagery of what they're talking about. And gosh, even just the points of light, like I've talked before, of them being like searching, even please turn on your light, this need to continue to know that people are there and supporting them and wanting to, they've talked about like embracing, but also just like needing almost like that guidance, like needing fans there as a way of knowing that what they're doing matters and connects with people, and, you know, has that positive impact that they're hoping for, or at least like the impact that they are trying to go for, and that the experiences that they express through their music are ones that connect with other people and mean that they're not alone in those experiences, right? Every time that they sing about something that digs into some of those darker, more heavier subjects, and every time fans say either they have experienced that too, or they empathize, or they understand, is like validating those experiences to a deeper level and letting them know that they are not isolated in what they're feeling, what their experiences, what they're thinking, and having support with that at the same time, like having that outpouring of love that goes along with that acceptance of them expressing their experiences and who they are. I wasn't ready to cry again. I gotta hear these harmonies, okay?
내 맘 특히 널 보고 싶어 마침내 긴 햇살이 저물고 너를 찾는 바보 같은 날 위해 꼭 불을 밝혀줘
Gorgeous.
긴 그날에 널 안고 싶었던 이야기
Beautiful little vibrato there at the end too.
Like firefly, 온 길을 난 오를래 Firefly, you're like a moonlight and I'm firefly 날개를 펼쳐 난 Firefly
No, that got me. I feel like I've had chills this whole song with them all singing together. I'm sure live everyone in the audience is also singing with them. No, that took me out. Okay, fine. Sounded gorgeous. Love the way they softened out their voices to blend together. Love the wing imagery, because we had that in the previous song with two rings. They talked about having wings as well. Okay, fine. It's fine.
Firefly, you're like a moonlight and I'm firefly 날개를 펼쳐 난
Oh, they're like, I'm Firefly, like drawn to that point of light.
조금은 네 어깨에 기대 매 순간 우리가 더 환하게 비춰지게
Tommy.
서로에 머물러 어제의 우린 오늘도 하늘이 빛을 숨긴데도 너와 난 점점 더
No, I'm like legit crying. Oh my god. Okay, one sec. Okay, fine. This is what we're doing. Y'all being sweet. Them talking about being fireflies, drawn to those points of light, attracted to it, whilst also being their own points of light for the darkness for each other and for their fans. And like Tommy's vocals, she sounded so good. And then that got me anyway. Shivers. I always love when the lightness that Tommy has with her singing voice. And the moment that Xion started singing, I was like, no, that's gonna take me out, because Xion on a ballad, just RIP, right? Fine. This is what we're doing. I'm going back because apparently I like pain.
우린 오늘도 하늘이 빛을 숨긴데도 너와 난 점점 더 마침내 긴 햇살이 저물고 너를 찾는 바보 같은 날 위해 꼭 불을 밝혀줘 하루가 긴 그날에 널 안고
Okay, I love just the harmonies with them anyway, but I love the way that Yechen just blended in there. Like she was doing the ad-libs and then she blended into the harmonies. Gorgeous. I'm just malfunctioning. I love the build up in the production too. Kahyun.
like a moonlight and I'm firefly 날개를 펼쳐 난 firefly.
Okay, fine. Just pulled out the production, right? The part where they're all singing together in harmonies. Whatever, it's fine. Did I have any kind of productive thoughts in that? I don't know. I don't know if I did. I think I just cried. It's the longest song on this album, and I think I just cried through all of it. I had lots of shivers. Their vocals sounded incredible. They've sounded so good through this whole album. They always do, but next level on this album. So much softer than a lot of the approaches to the previous songs. Xion with that little like vocal run into her like lower range, and then she just like hits that higher note in the ad-libs. Love all the harmonies. I love hearing like who's doing like the higher part of the harmony and who's doing the lower part, and the way that they mixed them so that one is on one side of the production, one's on the other, and then I think they flip them so it's lower side on one side, higher, and then when they switch who's singing, they flip it so it's lower on the other side and higher on the other, I think, which has a nice balance to it. There's been imagery of balance because of justice and the scales of justice and some of that imagery throughout it. I think I had other thoughts throughout, but then got emotionally distraught, so I don't know how much those kind of came out. I don't even know how to feel. I knew they were gonna do something sentimental with this one because I feel like a lot of this album was pointed outside of the fandom, and I was like, at some point they're going to have to say they're gonna have to turn back, right? This felt a lot like Dreamcatcher at the front, knowing that they had all of their fans behind them supporting them, right? Backing them up, their own little army as they march forward, right? That's what a lot of this album felt like. And then at some point they would have to turn around and say, thank you so much for finding me, right? I'm gonna cry again, but that's basically what this is. Of like, them talking about us being like the moon and this giant point of light, and then being like this little firefly in comparison, but together the light is brighter. Like, all of us together make such a bigger pool of light and brightness and warmth and support than separate. And live, I bet the audience just sings their heart out to the song live. It's a bit of a circle moment to know that I cried in the first song of this album and I cried in the last. So I guess that's just what we're doing now. I'm all emotional and stuffy and distraught. Ugh. Okay, let's actually talk about this album. I loved this album so much. I feel like every time a new album comes along, or just me discovering one, it instantly becomes my favorite in a way that I cannot describe. Like, me saying I just cycle through all of the albums that I've heard at this point. I listen to them from front to back and I just go through is not even a lie. I will just binge listening to their music because I love it so much. I love all of the songs. Literally do not skip anything. No intros, no outros, no little switching up in their style or the sound that they're going through. I'll listen to all of it. And I feel every time they come up with a new album chronologically with the comebacks that I've actually taken part in as a fan as they're happening, they just get so much better. They just continue to be fantastic to the point where if you ask me to name what my favorite album is, I'm like, whatever the last one was I listened to, because I don't even know, right? This album was so good. I think they did so many wonderful things in it. They showed off so much range in the production, in their vocals, in the kind of stuff that they wanted to talk about. I love the group feeling of it. It very much felt like all of these songs would be an incredible experience live, and I think a lot of that is because it does have this feeling of Dreamcatcher marching forward, knowing that they have Insomnia behind them, knowing that they have this huge group of people who are going to support them and have their back no matter what they're doing, and not only using that as a powerful stance going forward, but also using it as strength to go, okay, try things then. Let's experiment. Let's bring in other elements. Let's elevate everything in terms of production, in terms of vocals. I haven't checked out a lot of performances yet. I checked out the It's Live for Justice, which is on my Patreon, and I checked out the dance practice for Justice too. But I'm sure that from what I've heard of people talking about the live performances and how I need to check out, I have the whole list of them that I need to check out, elevated in that point too. So many parts of this feel like they were just like, all right, let's just do the thing that we want, and let's not do it in a shy way. Let's not do it in a tentative way. Let's just go. Let's just do it. Let's go all out and fully embrace the things that we want to do and express and show how we've progressed and how we've grown and what we've been doing between the previous album and this one. And I feel like it feels like a much bigger jump. Again, I legitimately love and listen to Villains all the time, but they were specifically going for a kind of character and sound, and there was this separation deliberately from who they are as Dreamcatcher from what that album was a lot of the time, because they're parodying a lot of stuff. It feels like a bigger jump because it's been a while since they've just been like, all right, let's genuinely just do what we want to do and express more of that internal feeling and thought process that they have, right? And also this one feels like it has more of a bite to it in general, not just in terms of the confidence that they're exuding, but this album definitely feels like they're like, all right, let's just say what we want to say, right? It feels way more like we know that the people who actually support and appreciate us and love us are going to have our back and aren't going to be mad that we are holding our own and not going to put up with anything anymore. I'm all for it. I love when K-pop groups or artists know how powerful they are, know how successful they are, know how much different parts of the industry are reliant on them and are just like, oh, you think you can push me around and stuff because there's some cog in the machine of the industry. No, you can't. Because at the end of the day, I'm the face of your business, right? I'm the face of what makes you money. Maybe sit down. I always love when artists do that because I think that they should and that they deserve to, and that the industry needs to respect the fact that without the groups, without the talent, they're not going to exist, right? Like all those other parts of the industry don't mean anything without the artists at the forefront. I really like having a little bit more of that edge to the sound, and not just in terms of lyrical content, but also their vocal performance production. This just felt like it had more of a backbone to it. Not that they've ever been cowardly before, but this one just felt more, they were willing to like pick a fight and hold their word, right? There's something grungier and grittier about this album that I just love, and I'm gonna have to listen to it a billion times. It's just gonna be the soundtrack of my life for the next little bit. It's gonna be my whole personality. I'm definitely gonna have to check out some of the live performances that people have told me about. They'll probably be on Patreon. I don't know how much I can put on the channel itself because of copyright things, but I'm excited. I'm excited to dig more into this comeback now that I've heard the album and I don't have to worry about accidentally wandering into spoiler territory and all of that. So I hope you enjoyed listening to that along with me. You can click this place to go see my previous reactions, or you can subscribe to me next time I post a Dreamcatcher reaction. I will see you in the next video. Bye.